Hi guys, I hope you're all doing well. Justin Hatt back here with a brand new lesson. This week we're going to be checking out some blues techniques. I had a student the other day that was asking me about how I kind of take an approach and how I can go into a blues solo, and my personal approach on my thought processes and what I'm thinking about scales and different note selections when I'm thinking about playing a typical 12-bar blues. So let's zoom in onto the fretboard and let's break it on down. Alright, so there's a couple different things that I think about in my thought process when I'm coming up or thinking about arranging some type of blues solo. If I'm like in a jam situation and somebody's like, alright, take a solo, now it's your turn. There's a couple different things that I'm thinking about, and this is all going to be in the key of A. So typical blues in the key of A, your A7, or your A9 or A13, whatever version of that dominant chord that you want. And then we have some type of D, D7, D9, depending on what kind of variation we want. And then we also have our E. So we're thinking about A, D, and E. It's our 1, 4, and 5 in the key of A for A blues. So there's a couple different things that I'm thinking about. Number one, obviously, I'm thinking about my A minor pentatonic. I'm assuming you guys probably already know what that scale based on the fact that you probably jumping into this lesson, but in case you don't, in the fingerings, 5-8, 5-7, 5-7, 5-7, 5-8, 5-8. And then I also think about adding in the blues note, so that would be on the 6th fret of the A and on the 8th fret of the G. That's a cool lick in itself. Sliding and back from that. But anyway, I also think about my major pentatonic, my A major pentatonic, which looks like this. Think about this scale pretty much in its upper extension, but I also combine both of those elements. So that scale position is 5-7, 6-7, or excuse me, 4-7, 4-7, 4-6, and then 5-7. So think about that. Again, so my first position, and then my A major pentatonic. So I think about how I can combine some of those elements so that I have an overlapping scale. So maybe I have something that looks like this. So think about taking those scales and combining them to make almost like a hybrid scale. So that way when you're playing through a progression like this, you can think about how you're mixing the major and the minor pentatonic. So did you hear in that lick right there where it started out major and then it went to the minor? So let me play through this real quick and see if your ears can determine whether what's major or minor. So notice how there was major and minor in there. So that's what I'm always thinking about, is how I can combine. I'm thinking about combining both major and minor. Now, also, I want to talk about arpeggios. I think arpeggios are really, really, really important. Arpeggios is basically taking the notes of each individual chord and playing them separately, almost like in a scalar form, not just as an accord. So let's look at a couple different examples of some arpeggios based in this system. Alright, so here's one right here. It's my A7 dominant, or A dominant 7 arpeggio. So I'm putting my second finger on the root of A, and I'm walking up the major scale essentially. So I'm going A, C sharp, E, so 1, 3, 5. So second finger on low A, First finger on the C sharp, 4th fret of the A string. Pinky's gonna jump up to the 7th fret of the A string. Now I have to grab the 7th. And there's my 7th. So what I'm doing is I'm coming over and grabbing the 5th fret on the D string. See there? So that's 1 octave. That's all the notes right out of the A7. Now let's complete the octave. I'm gonna come up here, grab the 7th fret of the D, do this little staircase shape. So I'm gonna go just down there. So that would be 7, 6, 5. And then on the B string, I'm gonna go up with my pinky on the 8th fret. That's my 7th again. So there's the octave of the 7s, flat 7s. And then come over to the high E on the 5th fret to finish that octave. So A and A here. So we have. If you want to jump up and grab the major 3rd with your pinky, it's a little bit of a stretch, but you can do it. So 5 to 9. Sometimes instead of using the low notes, what I'll do is I'll just play this arpeggio on the top. And just kind of get used to that idea. What's really cool about this is you can do this bend arpeggio. Half step bend. So I'm basically doing the same exact thing, but then I'm doing a half step bend on the 7th fret of the B to get that G. So then you get this cool little bend. So far again we've talked about major pentatonic, minor pentatonic, blues scale, and now we're going to start doing with these arpeggios. So now let's look at an arpeggio for the D7 chord. So typically you're used to seeing the D7 chord in this position right here. Well, what's really cool is I always think about this little triadic shape. So what I'm doing, instead of doing this full bar chord, I'm thinking about putting my 3rd finger on the 7th fret of the D string, 5th fret of the G string, and then 7th fret of the B string. And you can just play the notes right out of that. But if you want to complete the full arpeggio, it's going to look like a similar pattern like we did here with the A7. So we're going to do 5, 4, 7 on the A and D string. Then we have to jump over and grab the flatted 7. So then that is going to be the 7th. So the 5th fret on the G string, our flat 7. Then we want to complete the octave. So then I'm going to come up here on the 7th fret of the G string, our D note. Now I have to do this little finger roll. So get used to this idea of being able to switch adjacent strings with one finger. So I'm thinking 5 or 7 on the G, 7 on the B, and then 5 on the high E, and then 8 on the high E. So that one all together. But if you just want to take the top shape out of that, you just have to think about how you can use these in context. So think about this. Here's my A7. D7. A7. D7. All just straight arpeggio notes right out of the chord. Now let's take a look at our E7. So I tend to do the shape that's based off the C chord shape. So how I do this, so think about your cage position, right? So I'm thinking about my C chord up in this position here to get that E chord. So I'm thinking C, just like this, right? But what I'm doing is I'm going 7th fret of the A, 6th fret of the D, it's my major 3rd, 4th fret of the G, there's my 5th, jumping up to the 7th fret on the G string, which is my flat 7, coming down to the 5th on the high B, the B string, and then we're going 4 to 7 on the high E. So So all together, just let's play these arpeggios just as they appear. So A7, D7, E7, that's another technique that I do a lot, is hammering onto that major third. So my process when I'm always thinking about blues soloing is I'm always thinking about the scales that I'm thinking, and I'm thinking about targeting specific notes. You always want to try to target your landing notes to be notes that belong in that chord. Sometimes your solos can sound you know, unsatisfying or not very nice to listen to. If you're playing, you could be playing all the right notes, but you're not targeting the specific notes. You have to think about being selective in the notes that you play. So if I'm thinking this A7, I'm thinking how I can target those notes in there. The notes in the A7 chord are A, C sharp, E, and G natural. That's our flat 7. So I'm thinking about how I can target those notes in there. Okay, so here's that: root, major third, 7th, and then root again. There's a cool lick by itself. Or you could do super cool, right? Now I'm thinking about that with D7 as well. How I can do that with D7. The notes in D7 are D, F sharp, A, and C natural. Oh, I added in the 9th there. That was a cool color tone. But so I'm always thinking about how I can do that. Same with the E7. Notes in E7, E, G sharp, B, and D natural. That's the flat 7. So those are my thought processes when I'm thinking about coming up with a blues solo. I'm thinking about mixing the major and minor pentatonic with the blues notes, so the blues scale. And then I'm thinking about the arpeggio notes. So sometimes I might start with just major pentatonic. Minor pentatonic. Major pentatonic note. Then I go to the D7. I'm thinking minor pentatonic. But then I'm thinking arpeggio notes. E7. Same exact thing. Alright guys, that was the video. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you digged it. Let me know what you want to see next. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and hitting that bell notification so you never miss one of my videos. I post on every single Wednesday at 11 o'clock. Take care, y'all.